So we're looking forward with optimism. We're going to end on a high note for the final panel today. The topic is The Future is Now. How emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and quantum computing are reshaping industries and changing the way that we live and work every day, every week. Our moderator this afternoon is Professor Genevieve Bell. She's the founder and currently the director of ANU's School of Cybernetics and a vice president and senior fellow in the Advanced Research and Development Labs at Intel Corporation. Professor Bell is a leader at the intersection of cultural practice and technology development, and she's an important voice in global debates around AI and human society. Genevieve will be the Vice-Chancellor of ANU next year. She was elected to the Academy in 2018. Please make her welcome.
I'm going to take advantage of the podium for 10 seconds because I got a piece of paper which will make all of this much easier, and because I realise our remarkable incoming collection of fellows and I, whilst we've had this conversation on the phone, we never had how we were going to stage manage the next piece. So Kylie, while I might be the incoming Vice-Chancellor, I'm clearly not in charge of anything that involves directions. So what I thought we'd do is a couple of things. I want to bring everyone up who's on the panel so that you can see them all. Then I'm going to sit down and we're going to have a free-ranging conversation. I will endeavour to get to questions, but I suspect, given that the time we spent on the phone together was sufficiently engaging, we will still be talking at 5. You will already left the building, be getting changed, and going to the Arboretum in your glad rags. My best anticipation is that is how it will go. So, without further ado, I want to bring 5 completely amazing new fellows of our Academy on stage to join me to talk a little bit about what comes next. So, Professor David Grayden, Professor Joanna Batsone, yay! Dr. Penny Stewart, woohoo! Sally Ann Williams, and Professor Yue Gao. I know, yay! I was told, among other things, we needed enthusiasm. I'm assuming you've had coffee, scones, you've been deeply, deeply, deeply bait and switched by a thing that looked like Lamingtons and wasn't. I understand the need for it, but I am sad because anything that's covered in coconut should be a Lamington and wasn't. I can't be the only one who had that moment. No, exactly. All right, good. We need to code switch better is my theory about that. So we're now going to code switch our way into the last session for the day. As Kylie said, this is a session really thinking about what comes next, about the future. And as we were thinking about and talking about what we wanted to share with you in the conversation we wanted to have collectively, we really thought we should configure it around some of the debates that are most current in the many worlds we move in at the moment, around artificial intelligence, around quantum, around the next set of technical and technological systems. So I'm incredibly excited to do that. We figured in order to do that, in order to give you just a sense of the diversity of conversations that are happening and the diversity of voices we get to have in the Academy and that I get to have on the stage with me, we would do this in 3 parts. This is not a surprise to them, just in case you were wondering. Part number 1 is, who are you? And what do you do? Because I always think it's a nice opportunity to ground ourselves. Second part of the conversation is, okay, that's excellent, that thing you do. What's it got to do with AI and the future? Bonus points if you can get the killer robots in there, but not, because we discussed we wouldn't do that. And then last but by no means least, a little bit of a conversation about what we're hopeful about that comes next. Because I realize at the end of a really long day before we go off to dinner, it's sometimes really easy when we talk about artificial intelligence and the next generation of technical systems to feel both the weight of dystopic stories and that vague sense of there's just really a lot to comprehend. And one of the things that was lovely in the pre-conversations we got to have with this collection of our new fellows is all the remarkable things they're optimistic about. And so I thought reflecting on that would be a nice way to end out the day. So, caffeinated, sugared, you've gone to the loo, you ready? Okay, good. How's that for a wind-up for you, David?
Wonderful.
Excellent. Hello, David. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. Is the microphone working? Oh, that's it. Yep, there it goes. So my name is David Grayden. I originally trained in electrical and electronic engineering and computer science, heading almost a beeline for a career in telecommunications. Top-up scholarship from Telstra Research Labs, working on AI for automatic speech recognition in the 90s when it was hard. And
I feel like I should clobber you for that one, but I'll let you have it, okay.
And, but then at the end of my PhD, I was offered a job at the Bionic Ear Institute with Graham Clark. And He needed somebody who could do speech processing, and that completely changed the direction I took. I was in awe of Graham, and so I grabbed that opportunity and worked on how to do sound processing for cochlear implants, how to make the bionic ear work better. And this is
wow, bionic ear work better. Your microphone skills not so much.
Thanks, Genevieve. So these were the early days, and yeah, I found out during that process that signal processing isn't enough. You need to understand how the brain works, and you need to start to bring machine learning, AI, into this. And so then my career developed further. I moved to the University of Melbourne and thought, how can we translate this into other technologies? So looked at doing EEG processing to predict epileptic seizures. I contributed to a large consortium that developed a bionic eye. And we created a breakthrough technologies in implantable brain-computer interfaces that's now undergoing clinical trials. So it's been an exciting journey that I suppose I would term it medical bionics, but it's about how can we use engineering to interface with the nervous system to try to fix some of the problems that go wrong along the way, whether that be with the sensory systems or with the brain.
Thank you. Well, no, I've had the luxury of sitting on a review panel with you before, and I was always quite daunted by all the things you knew. So it's nice to get to hear more of it right now. Joanna, I reckon you're next, because I've just realized that whilst I didn't know what you were doing, you have all lined up according to the images on the screen behind you. So
that's very impressive.
You are compliant to the max.
Joanna Batsone. I'm currently a professor at Monash University leading the Monash Data Futures Institute, which is an artificial intelligence institute. But as background, I grew up professionally originally as a physicist, which was really my first entree point to having to deal with large amounts of data coming off experimental machines. And this was in the era not just of little floppy disks, but really quite big floppy disks. And so my initial experimental physics training as a PhD student meant I was having to think about how do you store data, how do you process data, how do you analyze data. I grew up in the UK, and at the time that I graduated, the job market in the UK did not look very good. And so I ended up moving to the United States and had a number of really great opportunities to explore semiconductor physics, working in industrial research and development labs, and joined IBM as an experimental physicist, and spent many, many years subsequently at IBM. But as I think about the journey that I was on, it was always rooted fundamentally in data. And I look at it as a career that has gone through many different transformations. And so David, when you were talking about what was really hard in the 1990s, for us, what was going on in the 1990s was the explosion of the internet and all of the dialogue and discussion around how do you do business on the internet? How do you buy and sell things on the internet? What sorts of things could you buy and sell on the internet? How do you do online shopping? And so there was this explosion of thinking about buying and selling things fundamentally differently. And of course, I worked for a technology company. We were trying to sell computers on the internet. But that experience of trying to buy and sell was my first experience of entering away from a traditional world of research into much more of a world of research and development, and thinking about what does it take to deliver product to market, and what are the different teams that you have to pull together. So as I've listened today about discussions of collaboration and teamwork, my experience in trying to take technology to the marketplace was really my first experience of the realization that you do need a graphic designer or somebody who thinks about marketing or somebody who's going to do sales, and what about delivery and what about technical support, because it will break. Whatever it is you're delivering to the market will break. And so that end-to-end life cycle of how to bring technology to the market was what took me out of the world of research in a lab into development and delivery organizations across IBM. Fast forward to the 2000s, the dot-com bubbles, all very exciting. That's really my first, I would say, not so much exposure, but transition into really understanding how AI technologies were going to make an impact. So in the mid-2000s, I had been in development roles for a number of years. I moved back into industrial IBM research lab at the time that we were trying to figure out what are some of the big challenges that AI could solve. And for those of you who've spent time in the United States or who watch television at 7 o'clock most evenings here in Australia, there's a television game show called Jeopardy! And we actually decided that one of the most difficult things for a computer to comprehend was human language processing and how to interpret logic and reasoning from a language perspective. And so we built a Jeopardy! Computer. And I think it was Jane McMaster earlier who was talking about system of systems. Building a Jeopardy! Computer is much more than the algorithm or the set of algorithms. It really is a system of systems. It's voice and language and speech, text to speech, speech to text. It's actually the whole compute infrastructure that's needed in order to build a system. And so that whole notion of building a system of systems was really a way for me to get into what does it mean to deliver an AI solution that can be scalable, reproducible, and something that ultimately transitions into a product set that you can buy. So lots of experiences like that. For me, working for a really large tech company, and I'm sure Genevieve's experiences were very similar, took me around the world. It took me from New York to Ireland to Australia to New York, exploring different ways that we can deliver AI solutions for clients. But it was this back and forth between research to development to delivery, back to research to development to delivery, that was giving me a diversity of experiences. 3 years ago, and the timing was sort of interesting because it equated with the COVID pandemic, which was not part of the plan.
That's good, Joanna, because if that was part of the plan, we all have other questions.
3 years ago, I joined Monash University to lead this new Data Futures Institute to focus on artificial intelligence. And many people have asked me about that journey. But for me, it was this discussion around the intersection of industry and academia. How do we get that interplay between research and industry, research and academia, the translation of ideas and technology? How do we make that work? And how do we make that work here in Australia? And so that's the journey I've been on recently at Monash, looking at how do we bring a community together, how do we get industry and academia working together, and how do we do it on an international scale as well as a domestic scale.
It's a nice familiar journey for me too, Joanna, that bit of moving in and out of universities and industry, though I always think, having started as an anthropologist, am I still the first anthropologist in the academy, Kylie? I feel like I might be, I just assert it. There is something amazing about the invitation to join a large industrial research and development lab, and very much that sense of they don't actually care where you came from, they care much more about how you turn up. And there was something very liberating about that. I remember it when I first joined. Penny, do you want to take up the baton here?
I'm Penny Stewart, and I'm a rock mechanics engineer by background, and I worked in mining for the first 5 years of my career before going back to university and doing a PhD in rock mechanics. At the time, that area, rock mechanics, the sexy areas to be in was physics-based numerical modelling, and I did do a little bit of it, but basically I didn't believe it, and I still actually don't believe a lot of it, the physics-based. In mining, because of the rock, right? The rock is so highly variable that I was very sceptical. And so I decided to do something that at the time was considered quite backwards, and that was to go and analyse data. And so I did a lot of data analytics and did some statistics courses in my PhD, which then led me to build some skills in data science and modelling, which then in 2015, I founded the company Petra Data Science, which we're in business still like 8 years later, and we're doing quite well. So I thought there's quite a few people in the room here who've done the whole industry PhD sort of story. So I thought at this point I'd just get you to do a little bit of an activity with me to help you describe sort of that journey from so Petra basically 2016, 2017, we had our first really big successes in mining. So we deployed machine learning algorithms onto a couple of Newcrest mine sites. We deployed some at Cadia, and we deployed some at the Lihir operations in Papua New Guinea. And they were deployed simply as algorithms, which we handed over at the time. There was no IP protection around them particularly. Well, we thought there was, but there wasn't, because I was new to it all. Obviously we have protection now, but back then we didn't do it very well. And so we handed over some of that, the code, and it was coded into the DCS, which is the control system at the site. And it worked extremely well. Like the CEO, who is also an ATSE fellow, Sandeep Biswa, spoke at the Mining Club in Melbourne in 2017 and told the mining industry that we had basically prevented downtime on one of their mine sites for 6 months and saved them tens of millions of dollars loss of productivity. So that's all sounding really good. But the next stage and this is the journey bit, and I'd like to take you on this journey now, if you'll bear with me, because it is late in the afternoon, I want to give you something to do. So if you could, first of all, everyone knows what a pie chart is that correct? Good. So if you could close your eyes, please, and imagine a pie chart. And on one half is a red half of the circle.
Correct.
And on the other, that's the left side. And on the right side is a blue half. Okay? Now I want you to think about where Petra was back in 2016, 2017, where we had a working algorithm, we were making tens of millions of dollars for the mining industry. And think about how much of our code base now, as a software company, is dedicated to the algorithms that run those models now, compared to, what percentage in your mind, if you could imagine the blue side on the left and adjust it to what percentage you think. Just imagine that right now. Okay, I'm not going to ask you to share it with the group. I'm just going to let you think about it. Now I'd like you, this is the journey we've been on. Now I want you to fly in some words on top of that. And those words are, this is the journey I've been on now for the last 8 years. Trust. How do you create trust? How do you create usability and code that in? How do you create security and cybersecurity? And then finally, how do you make that commercially viable and sustainable and all of that is in the code as well. And so now I want you, after thinking about those extra 4 things beyond the algorithm, that's my journey, and think about how you might adjust that pie graph. So you can open your eyes now, and I'll let you know the actual numbers. So for us, back in 2016, most all of our code was just algorithms. We didn't have a lot of those other factors that I asked you to think about. And so now we are at less than 1% machine learning algorithms in our code base. So that's the journey I've been on, and I've had to learn a lot.
And 10 points for making everyone engage in an exercise, and 100 points, and 100 points for all of you for being compliant, and we have the photos to prove it. Sally.
Awesome. So my name's Sally Ann Williams, but you can all call me Sally because we're friends now. So I have a different journey, and I'm going to just only focus on 2 parts of it because there's a really long history of what I've done over my life, and you can come and talk to me about it at dinner. I spent 13 years on the research and machine learning team at Google Australia and helped build out research for Google around the world. And there's a lot I still can't talk about on that journey. So unless you give me a glass or 2 of wine, and I might give you a few fun stories. But I worked globally in the company in building a lot of the different products and services, but actually focusing more on our research engagements and research collaborations. And I would just echo some of the things that Genevieve mentioned about what it's like. It's liberating being in an organisation that is well resourced, that actually does have research and fundamental research at the core of its starting process of development. And their product journey. For the last 4.5 years, though, I have been privileged to lead a place called Cicada Innovations, which is Australia's home of deep tech. And I want to tell you a little bit about this and some data about it, because I think it's actually really fun and really exciting, and it certainly gets me out of bed in the morning, and it certainly made it quite easy to leave the organisation that I was in Google, even though I did really enjoy my years there. So we build science and engineering businesses. We're 23 years old. In our Sydney location, which is 9,000 square metres at South Everleigh, right next to Redfern Station, we house about 50 resident companies employing 450 people, and they do everything from, in the life sciences, they create medical device companies, diagnostics companies. Hey to SpeedX, Sally, woohoo. There you are, darling. SpeedX is one of our resident companies, born and bred there very proudly. We do therapeutics companies, and we have software as a medical device companies. We're also the home of the National Space Industry Hub, so we have upstream and downstream space companies. We have new materials companies, we have battery companies, we have hydrogen companies, we have quantum companies because Q-Control has one of their labs there. We have heavy industry, machine learning, robotics companies. We have robotics companies. I have a synthetic biology company, and I'm going to I have semiconductors and chip companies as well. Above that site, though, we also have just opened a new biomedical incubator in Melbourne, in CSL's research building called Juma, and we have another site at Westmead that we're opening around health tech. In that, we also, over and above that, in supporting these businesses, and for those of you who don't know what an incubator is, it's not a program, it's literally, think about incubating chicks and getting the right heat, the right environment, the right food, you know, all the things that they need to thrive and survive. That is literally what we do. Special, you know, facilities and labs, connections to capital, connections to mentors, tough conversations with me. It's a real joy. They love that. Support with their poison of choice when they need support in the many valleys of death. There's not one, there's many. Tears, hugs, championing, cheers, all of those things. But we also run some of the largest commercialisation training programs in Australia. So we run programs around deep tech, climate, energy, ag tech. I forgot my ag tech companies. I have ag tech companies as well. And they're really cool. Sorry, I forgot about them. And we also run commercialisation training programs across Australia. But the thing that I wanted to focus on, and I think that's really interesting, and there's two parts to this, is one is we are focused on people, not the technology, first and foremost, because people matter, because we live on this planet and we're doing a pretty, can I just say, we're doing a pretty shitty job of caretaking and stewardship of it. We've got a lot to do and a lot of problems to fix. And so every company that we work with in some way, shape or form is actually working on solving some of those world's most pressing problems for people, planet and prosperity. There's no one or the other, it's all inclusive. But in our 23-year history, at any given time, only 23 to 24% of our resident companies are direct spin-outs from university. And some people go, oh my goodness, that's a terrible problem. And I go, why? It's not a problem. Our companies are thriving and surviving. The rest of them, the vast majority of our founders, are educated from a tertiary environment, but they've spent a significant amount of time in industry and become increasingly frustrated in their large corporate entities with solving problems that they really want to see solved. So they've taken a risk. They've taken their commercial knowledge and their scientific or their engineering knowledge. They've somehow managed to find their way to our front door, and they've come in with an idea and a dream and sometimes a little bit of funding to build a business. And every single one of those companies actually works with universities, they work with our research institutes, they hire from them, and in many cases they even fund students going through programs, including industry-based PhDs, which again, I'm going to give a shout out to SpeedX. Over a dozen students have been supported through SpeedX and people going through their company and building their business to go through their PhD. Beautiful thing for SpeedX is they end up going and working for them, right? So it's a great way to build your pipeline. So we build those businesses, but we don't think about things in silos and we don't think about them in linear. We focus on what is the real problem that people are trying to solve and what resources they need to do that. So when I think about the types of companies and people say, let's talk about AI and the companies that you have, I say, let's talk about the problems they're trying to solve, and then let me tell you the technology stack that they're using to solve them, because AI is just a tool in that. Machine learning is just a tool in that. Robotics is just a tool in that. New materials is a tool in that. The problem and the people are the heart of what we do, and when we stay and start being people-focused and people-centred, that's when we actually see things come through to commercialisation. It's when we focus on the teams that we build around people. It's when we focus on the problems that you know, consumers, that our customers are using, that our patients, if it's in the health tech sector, you know, the problems that they're facing. When we focus on them and we really care deeply about them, we naturally look for the technologies and the teams that are going to help solve that, and we don't generally care where they come from, what their demographic is, what their background is, and you end up with great diversity on the very long, very arduous and very challenging journey that it is commercialising a deep tech business. And on average, just so that you know, when people say, oh, it's like a 10-year journey, it's not, it's a 15 to 20-year journey. We've had great successes, by the way. We've helped our residents over the years raise over more than 1.8 billion. We've had more than 1.4 billion in exits from 6 trade sales, and we've got an 85% survival rate. And that's what matters to me more. That's the stat that I'm much more proud of, is the 85% survival rate, because those 85% companies that we graduate, and it's really hard to graduate them. They're kind of like millennial children. They don't want to leave home. And yes, I'm looking at SpeedX again. Love them. They're one of my faves. But, you know, that 85% survival rate matters because they're in Australia and they're actually working with all of your institutions and your organisations, collaborating with them, hiring students out of your organisations, reinvesting into the ecosystem here, and we need more of that.
They don't leave you, Sally, because you're you.
Oh no,
Why
they
would
do leave me because I give them tough love sometimes. So they go away in a bit of a cranky state occasionally.
Ringing endorsement for ATSE Fellow right there. They go away in a cranky state. I think that's probably true for more than just your incubator fellows. Lucky last, Yue.
My name is Yue Gao. I'm the chief scientist and the director for directed energy program in US Defense Systems. Before I transferred to US Defense Systems, I worked in US Space Systems for almost 20 years as the head of R&D. So in the last 20 plus years, I have been working on advanced laser technologies for space and defense applications. And later, maybe I can describe all the defense and space-related systems have a high level of automation and AI built in. The first technology I would like to talk about is tracking satellites and space debris using advanced laser technologies.
Really cool.
So there are actually two types of laser tracking. One is what we call the satellite laser ranging. That's for tracking satellites equipped with retroreflectors. So using picosecond pulse-width laser pulses, we can track and measure the distance from the ground station to the satellites with millimeter accuracy. So the millimeter accuracy satellite laser ranging data are essential for environmental protection and earthquake prediction, also for calibrations of navigation satellites. So now we have developed totally around 10 satellite laser ranging stations and delivered to customers around the world, of course, including Australia, Japan, Korea, Germany, and Saudi Arabia. In Australia, we are responsible for building the satellite laser ranging systems and also for operating them. So the ranging data have been provided to Australian government, Geoscience Australia, also to NASA, so with very good data yield and reliability. The second type of tracking is tracking space debris. I think space debris now have been acknowledged as a major threat for space assets, including Australian-owned satellites used for environmental monitoring. So using nanosecond pulsed high energy and high beam quality lasers, we can track space debris smaller than 10 centimeters in size and with 1 meter class accuracy. So that's why in 2003, EOS became the first and only organization in the world tracked space debris using laser technologies. And at the moment, there are 2 fully automated space debris tracking stations deployed in Australia. One is at Mount Stromlo, ACT. Also, I think second technology I'm going to talk about is the directed energy and the increasing use and the deployment of unmanned aerial vehicles or drones, right, in the recent conflicts have made the counter-drone system an essential capability for modern defense forces. Since 2016, we have been developing this kind of counter-drone directed energy high laser systems. And up to this stage, we have demonstrated the world-leading laser architectures and also achieved all the performance milestones, including delivering 35 kilowatt. That's the highest laser output power in Australia, and also defeating flying drones in the field. And recently, some of our field tests have been featured on Australian TV programs, including ABC News. The third technology I'm going to talk about is remote weapon systems. So our remote weapon systems are fitted on top of the armored vehicles or tanks to allow our soldiers to identify the target, to track the target, and to fire the weapon without exposing themselves. So our soldiers do not need to have their head up above the terrace where they can be easily shot. So they can stay in the safe environment, and such as the armored vehicle, or even several hundred meters away from the real weapon, to perform all the tasks when they are well protected. And here I want to emphasize that the key purpose or the essence of developing this kind of remote weapon stations is for force protection. These systems can save lives. As a matter of fact, supplied to Australian Defence Force, to other allied forces, and these systems have saved lives of many Australian and allied forces. So as you can see, this kind of remote weapon systems and space tracking systems have a high level of automation and AI integrated into the system. For example, both the satellite laser ranging system and the space debris tracking systems contain lasers, telescopes, domes, timing electronics, many sensors, and also a lot of cameras, so that they have a very good remote control and the monitoring capabilities. And now the satellite laser ranging station and the space debris tracking system are all run on so-called unmanned basis. So our satellite laser ranging station and the space debris tracking stations have demonstrated 24/7 unmanned, fully automated operation for quite a few years with very good track record and reliability. Thank you.
Pause there and hold all of that. So across 5 different fellows, we have conversations about data, about how to think about developing research and development teams, about how to create new products, about how to think about everything from efficiencies to safeties to productivities, how to think about interfaces between humans and computation, brains and computation, data and more bits of data, how to think about ideas around trust, safety, security, how to think about taking every one of those ideas and turning them into a thing that lives in some way in the world over a period of, at this point, between this group of people, 30 plus years. And you get to have the moment I had on the phone last week of going, damn, that's a lot. And it's an extraordinary range when we think about where will artificial intelligence, next generation technical systems with data at their core, where are the places that is going to turn up? Because we've now seen across multiple ecosystems, everywhere from space to defense to every form of deep tech that Sally can remember, and agriculture, which she forgets, to ideas about what's going on inside large commercial enterprises that many of us have been part of, and universities, and all the pieces around invention and innovation and creativity. And you get to pause and think the sheer breadth of that means in some ways whenever we talk about the future, we're actually talking about all those pieces of the puzzle, right? We're talking about, well, as both Sally and Penny say, we're talking about the people piece. Joanna and I would say we're talking about the human and the organizational piece. I know David and I would also say it's about the culture that gives rise to those kind of possibilities and conversations. And as we think about what it would be to create, curate, incubate multiple futures, we know we're tackling, in some ways, the least thing we all talked about, which was the technology piece, and the thing we all, in some ways, most talked about, the system, the human piece, the problem statement we're trying to solve for, the opportunity we're trying to create, and the layers that we need to put over the top of all of that. And if the title of this session is The Future is Now, I'm simultaneously pleased and daunted by the range of possibilities that future has based on who's on this stage with me. I told everyone they had to come up with a short, pithy answer to that question. I think I get a fail for the question. They get an A+ for effort, but we're going to have to now go much quicker because I committed I would have people out of here for the frocking up that must necessarily come. So, well, some people will frock up. I will take some time. That means the last word of this, it's short and it's sweet. And it's you've all had remarkable careers that are not even close to finished yet, because I look at all of you and I know there is amazing things still to come in all of your different roles and your responsibilities. So looking into that future in the space you sit in, and we're going to start from this end and come back to me, what's the thing you're most optimistic about? Yue?
Oh, I think the level of automation for space and defense applications would evolve. And I'm confident that, for example, it's getting too long, we are going to build more advanced lasers with a high level of automation and AI integrated to better protect Australia, including protect our space assets, space environment, and also to protect our soldiers.
Okay.
Tough love, Sally, right at me. Short, pithy.
Tough love right at you. Don't ever waste a good crisis. We're facing into some really hard and tough economic challenges as a country, and they're not going to go away, and people are feeling the pain. Don't worry, I'm getting to the hope, Genevieve. They're feeling the pain because what I'm really hopeful about and what I'm really excited about is Australians are great under pressure. Time and time again, when the odds are stacked against us, and not just us but our First Nations people over the years, we have showed resilience, courage, determination and steadfastness to the mission at hand, which is to solve whatever it is that we're facing. And a crisis does nothing but bring us together to do that. So I'm incredibly hopeful that in the difficult headwinds that we're facing economically, in the geopolitical uncertainty that we're facing, that the smarts, the capabilities and the goodwill of people to come together to solve the wicked challenges that we face for people and planet, we can do it, and a little bit of pressure is going to, it produces diamonds at the end of the day, but we don't need to wait that long to get those diamonds, I don't think.
Thank you. Penny?
Yep. Look, I think most of us here would be aware that there is a bit of a narrative in AI that is not always positive, and especially in the media. And so I'm really hopeful that, in fact, I did a bit of preparation for this panel to look at what the other academies specialise in, and one of them is the Social Sciences Academy. And there's a podcast series that they have. And just last month, Professor Nicole Gillespie from that put out this podcast. And why I'm optimistic is because everyone's been talking today about the importance of the arts and philosophy and ethics in AI. And I was really excited to think that I'll get to collaborate with people from the social sciences through this ATSE association. That made me very excited and positive. Because one of the things that Nicole said in her podcast is she said that a lot of the issues of trust in AI are actually both predictable and preventable. So that gives me a lot of hope, and I look forward to working with other academies.
In terms of hope, I pick first an application space that I think is already seeing transformation, but I think we'll see tremendous more transformation at the intersection of AI. And that's in the health sciences space. David, it's a field that you're in. But I see tremendous opportunity for transformation about the way that we think about disease treatment, health and wellness, and various other applications of AI technologies as we think about the practice of drug development, drug delivery, drug design, clinical treatment, and wellness. So that's the application space that I'm very hopeful about. Despite all of the discussion that we've had last year, we've managed to get through an entire day today, and I've been listening for it, without anyone in this audience talking about ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, Joanna.
So the reason I bring that up is that the conversation that we've been having about artificial intelligence in the last year has been fundamentally different. And so whereas there's both a positive and a negative about many of the conversations that we have, it's put artificial intelligence in the forefront of the conversations that we're having. It's a conversation over the barbecue. It's a conversation in a learned academy. And so the opportunity to have those conversations around why is artificial intelligence going to make a difference and how should it make a difference, that is the opportunity ahead of us. And so why am I hopeful about this? It's because we're having the right conversations. We haven't got all the answers yet. We don't necessarily have the alignment that we need to have around government investment, industry investment, partnerships between different teams. But what I'm hopeful about is we're actually now having the right conversations. And particularly for an organization like ATSE, which has the opportunity to advocate from a policy perspective, each one of us now has a voice that we can offer in the context of how do we make a difference and how do we drive societal impact from these new technologies. And so for me, that's a very hopeful statement. AI is an old field. Many of us will go back to the 1950s and refer to the Dartmouth Conference as the birth of artificial intelligence. But the time really is now to make a difference. And so that, for me, is why I'm hopeful as we look ahead.
So no pressure on you, David.
Well,
Last form of hope.
I thought there was going to be a lot of pressure because I thought Joanna was going to steal my thunder, but she went the pharmaceutical route. But I think one of the medtech is one of the areas where AI and machine learning is really starting to take hold. And it's a two-edged sword. Regulators such as the Therapeutic Goods Administration here in Canberra, TGA, not really sure how to deal with that because often the models that we use in AI are unexplainable, uninterpretable, black boxes. And so how can you show when something's going to fail if you don't really know how it's working? But I think there's a lot of areas that are already starting to benefit and we can sort of really see a bright future. So just to give you some quick examples. So we're working with Cochlear to see can we clean up the speech signal for people who struggle to hear in noisy environments using AI to provide them with a better signal. In the epilepsy space, one of the spin-out companies is Epiminder, a device for long-term monitoring of EEG, and enormous data. So another spin-out company then to help deal with that, Seer Medical, was formed to analyze that data, and there's no way a neurologist can look through a year's worth of data. It takes 3 days to look at a week. And so in steps AI and is finding those important parts for them to look at. It's not doing the diagnosis yet. That's what the regulators will have trouble with, but it's showing the neurologists where to look. Synchron, another spin-out that's doing brain-computer interface clinical trials in New York at the moment. Can we provide what we are looking at? Can we provide better ways of decoding those brain signals so that, say, someone with motor neuron disease can do more and more, say, on their computer or with a wheelchair and so on? Again, we have issues around safety. Those are the future problems to solve. But for now, we can use this, these breakthroughs that have really happened is the ability to deal with big data, to run these complex systems on small chips. And I think that that's really exciting for the future.
So here's the deal. We're late. I've already been told I've been over time twice. I'm not ignoring you, I promise. I'm just strategically not paying attention. We don't have time for questions, but we're going to dinner. This collection of truly extraordinary people will be at dinner. You are to find them. You are to ask them the question you didn't get to ask. You are, and let me give you a hint about what a question sounds like, just in case you've forgotten. It starts with a question word. Who, what, how, why. It ends with your voice going up at the end. Australians have a structural advantage that way. We always sound like we're asking a question. And it's very good if you say to someone you plan to ask a question that you follow it with a question, not an exegesis. That would be the bit where you hold forth for a very long time and your voice does not go up. So, task from me to you is to find these remarkable people at dinner and ask them the question you didn't get to ask today, because they are genuinely extraordinary. And the piece I get to be hopeful about is that, for me, every time we induct a new collection of fellows, we expand the possibilities of who we are and what we get to talk about. We get to expand the range of talent and possibility in the room, and I suspect you're all with me in thinking this is an extraordinarily good crop of people to expand that possibility with. So thank you.
And thank you, Genevieve. Thank you, David, Joanna, Penny, Sally, and Yue. I'm going to do a little wrap-up now, so if you want to exit the stage, you're very welcome. Or you can stay here and look at me.
I'm going to do that adoringly from the audience.
Brilliant, thank you. What an impressive group of new fellows today. I'm sure we'll all agree the future is in very good hands. We covered so much today, and it was fascinating to hear some of those central threads coming through. As we navigate the bumps and the wiggles on our way to next century in all of its complexity, its extremity and its unpredictability, it's clear from today's conversations that it's so important for research, government, society and industry to come together, to learn from each other across disciplines, across knowledge systems. It's key, as is inspiring, educating and supporting a more diverse and connected STEM-skilled workforce. Transdisciplinary is the way to go, we've heard loud and clear today. So think global and act local. Work towards the year 2100 while paying attention to what's happening now, next week, next month and next year. Also, apparently we need an animal mascot for 2100. So that's your challenge for this evening as well. Think about what that might be. We'll take suggestions later. We kicked off the day with some of the biggest challenges, thinking about how we decarbonise everything. The low-hanging fruit has been plucked, we heard, and the hard work has begun. It's all about complex systems and adapting new technologies to incorporate and work with old infrastructure. Everything, everywhere, it's all connected. The world is watching us and our longest integrated power grid in the world. Speaking of power grids, Daniel has no small task. He knows the decarbonisation of energy will underpin the decarbonisation of so many other Australian sectors, including the nutty challenge of transport. Xiping's work to create better batteries will be crucial to the next step in big-scale energy. And Glenn, of course, has been working in renewable energy since before it was cool. So he's wielding his newfound short-haired status to convince the farmers of the need for large-scale transition, which also will be a crucial piece of the puzzle. Understanding future circular systems can support big industry like cement, iron and steel to make sensible investments that will last well into the future, Gus told us. He's hopeful. Companies are committed and they're starting to invest, and governments are supporting this too. Vivian's looking back to build our next steps. She likes to make use of things that nobody else wants, transforming waste into resource. And she's reminded us that there isn't just one cycle in the circular economy. Ideally, it keeps going around and around. So she's working on creating buildings from rubbish. Would you move in? And would you get cosy with drinking recycled water? Therese asked in the second panel as she puts the A into STEM to make steam. The panel focused on building resilience in times of crisis and how Australia can adapt and thrive in the face of all of the challenges that we're facing. Social licence and effective communication are critical, we heard, and that too was a thread that emerged throughout the day. Diversity and education are big parts of building resilience. We urgently need to bring more and more diverse people into engineering. Diversifying our economy to build resilience to economic shock is also important. Jane warned us of the current and looming crisis in Australia's engineering workforce and underlined the importance of cultural diversity as well as gender balance. And Brian, who's using his Nobel Prize to open the doors to hearts and minds, reinforced the importance of diversity and the urgency of addressing declines in literacy and numeracy. Susanna urged us to see social media skills as a deep asset to fight for truth in mass communication and to deploy our young researchers and STEM professionals in defence of evidence. This panel took us from Netflix celebrating science and engineering to the TikTok generation of up-and-coming researchers, and then to the world's oldest innovators and science communicators. Daniel reminded us of the immense opportunity to learn from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and urged us to move fast in taking a woven-together approach to planning massive green industrial infrastructure. Learn from everywhere and apply lessons in unexpected ways. That came through again strongly in panel 3. Change is the only certainty, they told us. Skills are scarce, they said, but we should be optimistic. Australia has been and remains an innovation nation, and our past success will continue to pave the way for the future. Don't forget the fun while you're building function, Bao reminded us with his optimistic message that Australia can and should be a frontrunner in the next generation of manufacturing. Innovation's speeding up all the time, Stephen said. Don't delay. Kodak had a good century before it was disrupted, but Nokia's model only 10 years. What's the pace today? Transdisciplinary and transsectoral collaboration and expertise is needed to jump into and support Australian success for a new high-value, sustainable approach to manufacturing, Yun said, shooting for outcomes over outputs. Shamindi is bullish about Australian innovation, but lamented our place in the bottom fifth globally when it comes to application in the market. How can we marry industry pull with university KPIs and leverage opportunities like the National Reconstruction Fund to really put our R&D to work? Tuan encouraged us to do more with less, specifically 60,000 more houses a year. The workload and the workforce are at crisis level, and we do need to urgently reduce waste and speed up construction. Prefab's an obvious answer, but what can we learn and apply from across different industries? So how can our industries use green technologies to drive innovation for positive impact, Panel 4 asked. Susanna implored us to eat less meat, while she also works hard on making livestock more robust and resilient and low impact. We're all consumers, she says, and our choices do make a difference. Alistair's not winning friends in the fishing industry with his long view. They're making decisions for next month, next year, but at least we can now forecast marine heat waves. Bronwyn agrees we all play a part, and sustainable ocean industries cannot succeed without the buy-in and the support of legislators, community leaders, educators, multidisciplinary researchers. Anna's also championing social scientists and community leaders. When we're working in and for and beside communities, we absolutely cannot ever assume that we are working in a vacuum. Chris's work is all about community, and it's a responsibility we can all assume. We shouldn't be slaves to maths, he says. We should be innovators, use it, go further with it, like Mandawe Yunupingu, who sees mathematics as a close cousin of traditional knowledge and the kinship system. Panel 5 looked at advanced technology for a better world, taking us through some exciting innovations and how they'll make a difference. Sangeeta inspired us all with the potential for early detection of cancer through technology that's not only tiny and clever, but easy and cheap, the pee-on-a-stick pregnancy tests. Making new medicines and diagnostic techniques more simple and cheaper to access is also on Guillaume's mind. And not just cancer, but also diseases like malaria, which are appearing more often in places where they never used to be. Anna's inspired by the opportunities and strengths that Australia holds and the many potential applications for space and astronomy science and technology. She's also cognizant of the necessity to involve many disciplines and perspectives in problem solving. Crafting intersectionality from arts and engineering is native territory for Lara with her arts and engineering degrees. It turns out, she says, that people don't want to know about their energy use from half hour to half hour, but apparently all of us will happily live with big power in our devices in our homes. Reacting to storm and climatic flood events has become the new normal for Lara, and Australia's at the forefront of a number of technology solutions. Again, bringing our community with us is the challenge here, not the technology. David's also turning his attention to law, specifically IP law. It's something he knows well through his work in media compression and image coding, and he's keen for Australia to increase our leadership in this space. What comes next? Our final panel has asked. What's in store for the future? Well, it turns out a lot of the future is already here, and the time is now, and that people, again, and systems are key. Successful application of research takes time and energy, Sally says, but Australians are great under pressure, and it's crucial that we focus on the end users, like patients, that we channel our natural goodwill and we listen to what they need to predicate for success and to encourage creative solutions. Yue is running massive tracking systems to supply critical agencies with the data they need to track our changing world and the huge amount of space debris hovering around Earth. And Joanna shared her extraordinary journey working in AI in different companies, once more underlining the need to collaborate between industry and academia. Penny helped us visualise the efficiency that AI can create in rockfall mechanics and encouraged us to be hopeful about the potential for AI in all kinds of places, but especially through collaboration across disciplines and across academies. MedTech, like many other transformative technologies, needs social licence before we get the regulation and the support for application right, says David. But wow, the possibilities for AI analysing massive data sets, unlocking the secrets of the brain and the body and informing rapid clinical diagnosis, they are very exciting. So we haven't got all of the answers, And actually, I hope we never will, because curiosity is our bread and butter. And listening and learning and including all kinds of people from all kinds of places in our research and development, it's clear that this is the key to building a bright, exciting and resilient future. So thank you once again to every single one of our panellists today and of our moderators. Thank you also to the staff of ATSE who've worked very hard to bring the events this week to fruition and who work out every day to bring the collective wisdom of the fellowship, our exceptional fellowship, to decision makers and to the wider community. Thank you to the many fellows who engage actively in supporting new fellows by assessing, by promoting and applying on their behalf to bring them into the fold to join our mission to help Australians understand and use technology to solve complex problems. And thanks also to the catering staff, the AV staff and the photographic experts who've kept us fed and watered, given us sound and captured today in images. It's been wonderful to join you here today for this conversation. I'm sure that the conversation tonight will continue with vigour. I'm looking forward to seeing most of you there at the National Arboretum. So the awards gala dinner tonight will bring together all of you and a whole lot more of Australia's brightest minds across STEM in celebration of some of our top innovators as we make our national annual awards. Tonight we'll announce and celebrate those award winners across 7 prestigious categories, including the Major Clunies Ross Prize and our inaugural Traditional Knowledge Innovation Award, which has been established to recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander innovators who are solving modern problems through the application of traditional knowledge. Those of you who are staying at the Burberry Hotel, there will be a coach transfer available from the Burberry to the Arboretum. It's out the front of the Burberry on that little street between the Burberry and the Realm hotels, and that will leave at 6:15 sharp, so be there before 6:15 if you'd like a seat on the coach. Everybody else, obviously, you're very welcome to make your own way there, and I look forward to seeing you at 6:30 tonight. Thank you.